Watched some college football on Saturday. Watched Colorado UCLA. Something I noticed after the game, okay? And maybe you've seen it. I have not. But this is the first time that a Colorado game has been in like a good window for college football. And I hadn't seen all the tweets about the ratings from the game. Sean, had you seen anything about the ratings from the game?
I had not. I would assume good. They've been good all season.
Right. But, we kind of had a little time off from this. Like they played that game against, I want to say, Arizona State. That was, off on some off-brand network. They had the game against Stanford, but Stanford's cheeks. And then they lost to Stanford. Like, I'm curious, and this has always been kind of the thing for me with Colorado, is that I was curious how it would go once things got to be a little bit more realistic. And when what I thought was inevitable would happen with this season. And that was this team just don't have bodies, and they were going to break down, and guys were going to get hurt, and it was going to get harder and harder as it went through the year. So my question right now is this still a thing? Because to me, it is still a thing and still incredibly fascinating what is going on up there. But what I can't tell is this still the thing that it was when I didn't have no job? Because when I didn't have no job and it was left to the rest of y'all to talk about Colorado, it was a thing, okay? And I gotta say, I didn't feel like y'all covered yourselves with glory in dealing with this, right? And yes, I am going to say in part, it be your own people. Because the part that annoyed me the most while I wasn't working, and look, y'all had jobs, right? Y'all got to talk. But the thing that annoyed me the most about y'all no job having, try not to say MFs, I can, but my mama be listening. But the reason why I was not covered in glory, I started seeing stuff like people were writing columns about how Colorado had become Black America's college football team. I was like, what? I mean, there was all this like discussion about this in the context of blackness that blew me away. But part of why the discussion of Deion in the context of blackness didn't make any sense to me is that schools like Miami or Florida State could be, and Oklahoma in another way, depending on your region, but they had a particular tie to blackness because college football had not fully integrated yet. And that's a very, very important point. It had not fully integrated yet. Like people were still getting about as many black players as they needed. The schools to really go in on this idea of, hey, maybe we should just get the best players we could were Miami, Florida State, and like Oklahoma, Nebraska, both of them. They were the ones that were really leaning in. But up until that point, when you start talking about the 80s and the 90s, you start talking about how Georgetown in basketball became Black America's team. It was so much of a different social situation where now you have multiple generations that have grown up and actually have black people that root for the state university that's nearby. Like my man Joel from Missouri City always messes with me about rooting for Texas because I'm not from Texas, so I got there a little late and this is just a thing to do. But black people from Texas of that age wasn't really about that life. It's not the same anymore. It's black people from Alabama that root for Alabama. That wasn't always the case. So you weren't ever going to have all these black people who already watched college football that was going to jump on and start rooting for Colorado because they already had their own teams. It was different. What you were going to have were the hype beasts. And they showed up and they started talking all that, quite honestly, because they didn't know nothing about no damn college football, right? So if I were to show you Colorado and not show you the coach, there was nothing about that team that was any blacker than any other team that was out there. The only difference was Deion was their coach. So this wasn't ever about rooting for the team. It was about the singular cult of personality that surrounds Deion. And I'm going to have more time and more points to say more things about Deion Sanders, but he's that dude. Like he brings people in, he attracts attention in that way. But fundamentally, there's nothing that Deion is doing that is really that much different. Except I want to say this, and this is important. What I think is so crazy about this year for Colorado, and I'm trying to remember who I was talking to about this, who made this point, but it was a really good one. I think it's probably Joel. Colorado is the worst team to ever get every other team's best shot. You know, like there's some schools like when you take Texas, for example, and you go against a bunch of those schools in the Big 12 when they were over there, the Big 12 is primarily populated by Texas players, right? That's where everybody goes to get their players. Really was the only state for most of the time of the history of that conference that produced players that was in the footprint of the conference. It's a bunch of dudes from Texas in the Big 12, and Texas played a bunch of dudes that was mad they did not get offers from Texas. A&M would have to deal with that in a similar fashion, but you know what I mean, right? They were getting just about everybody's best shot. Colorado doing that, and they don't even have players yet. And they played tough. They played as strong as you could reasonably expect for them to play. And when I start talking about them getting their best shot, they played that game in the Rose Bowl against UCLA. That is the loudest I have ever heard the Rose Bowl for a regular season game ever. Okay? And you can say Colorado had lost all them games or whatever, the shine had gone off. Maybe not that much because they still packed 71,000 people in there. I saw something that said that was the biggest number they put in the crowd at the Rose Bowl since Chip Kelly got there. 71,000 because Deion attracts that level of attention and people are still on it. But what makes this fascinating to me and why it's wild that people are turning away, 4 wins is 2 or 3 more than I thought that they would get. It's 2 or 3 more than most people thought that they were going to be able to get. The fact that a game like UCLA was even close late, to me, is honestly a testament to what a good job that coaching staff has done. It is not a perfect team by any stretch of the imagination, and they have not done an immaculate job at coaching. But I was blown away, even though they blew that game against Stanford. I was blown away in those 2 games before that against Oregon and USC, where they were getting their doors blown off at halftime, and they kept coming. They kept going hard, and that is a testament to coaching.